Fox News alert for you now. The entire U.S. Senate could be on its way to the White House. The president extending an invitation for a rare briefing on North Korea. All 100 members asked to sit in on updates from Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Defense Secretary James Mattis, and others. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel is live on Capitol Hill. This just happened, Mike. What does this invitation signal?
Well, it shows you, Melissa, how concerned many folks here in Washington are about the erratic behavior by the North Korean regime. All 100 United States senators returning from a 2-week recess are being invited down to the White House for a classified briefing on Wednesday on North Korea and its recent activities, including firing off weapons into the Sea of Japan and other threatening behavior. The briefers will be four top administration officials: Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Secretary of Defense Mattis, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dunford, and the Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer talked about this critical meeting a short time ago.
Also on North Korea, on Wednesday, the White House campus will play host to a briefing for all 100 U.S. senators on the subject. The briefers will be Secretary Tillerson and Mattis, Director Coats, and General Dunford. This is a Senate briefing convened by the Majority Leader.
It will be unusual to see potentially all 100 United States senators load up on buses and go down to the White House, a sign of just how concerned many in the administration are at this point about North Korea's behavior at this point. We've seen a lot of erratic behavior from the regime, and so a highly classified briefing with some top administration officials.
Breaking news, a senior White House official says the U.S. is looking to put North Korea on a list of state sponsors of terrorism. This as the entire Senate, both sides of the aisle, is meeting at the White House right now for a briefing on North Korea that should be breaking up momentarily. Are we on the brink of military engagement with North Korea, and could it lead to an all-out nuclear war? I want to bring in former Assistant Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan and retired U.S. Naval Captain Larry Korb. Larry, all it takes to spark a wildfire is one tiny, thin match. And, you know, in military terms, that could be an errant sound, who knows what. Are you looking at something like that, sparking all-out war with a capital W?
Well, I think we have to be careful of the rhetoric, and I think the Trump administration is finally getting its act together. You remember the fiasco with the aircraft carrier and the Armada, and the president talking about, you know, nuclear submarines off the coast. I think Admiral Harris, who's the commander-in-chief of the Pacific, testified this morning before the Congress, and he said that the sanctions that China is putting on them are beginning to, you know, have an effect. And what I think we need to do, and the president says he's willing to negotiate at some point, is say, if you freeze your nuclear development, you're not going to get rid of it. Basically, what we will do is we will talk about an armistice to end the Korean War. You know, we still haven't ended the Korean War, and the North Koreans really believe that, you know, we want to control the whole peninsula. We need to do that, and we need to talk about at least temporarily suspending some of the exercises we do with the South Koreans, because, again, that feeds into their narrative.
Okay, Larry, I also have this just moving on the tape. Senior White House officials are saying that China now sees North Korea as a threat to Chinese interests and security. Maybe those sanctions aren't working well enough, and now it becomes a real threat from a military standpoint and from a global standpoint.
Well, that's why the sanctions are working, because the Chinese were always doing it kind of in a half-hearted way. But when they say that, they're going to get much more tougher on them. I mean, the Chinese are concerned. They do not want to see an American presence on their border, nor would they want to see a nuclear war there. And one of the things that we're doing, which makes sense, is started under Obama, is we're putting in an what we call a missile defense system, the THAAD system, into South Korea. Korea.
That's the anti-missile defense system that, that, by the way, is not operational just yet, but will be in a couple of days.
Right, that's right. And the fact of the matter is the Chinese don't like that either, because they say we could use it against their nuclear deterrent. So I think we're getting the things together. And as I say, it took a while with some of these contradictory statements, but I think we're finally sending the message that we need to. And this thing about putting them on a sponsor of terrorism, that's not good. That'll feed again into their narrative that we're out to get them.
But this China headline makes me wonder, and people are going to say, Liz, you're such a war hawk. No, I'm not. But is this China giving a verbal green light to the United States to start using some of that heavy artillery that they've moved over to the, well, now it's in the Philippine Sea, within 2 hours of striking distance, as far as the USS Vincent is concerned, to maybe lob something?
Absolutely not. Let me tell you, even if you don't go nuclear there, you're going to have millions of people die because of where the artillery is north of the on Seoul. Not just the South Korean people. There's about 150,000 Americans live there. We've got 30,000 troops plus their families. And even without a nuclear war, you're going to have horrible casualties. No.